All right, let's see if we've got it back now. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. Now that we've lost the entire audience, maybe I should wait for all of you to catch up. Hopefully, we are live. It looks like it, anyway. So let me share this with everyone back on. Oh man. I'll tell you what, this is why we're bailing on YouTube. After the All-Star break, I'm done. Done with it. Absolutely ridiculous that we go through this probably once a month, right? Here you go. Hopefully you all find us and get back to us. Let's see. No, it's not there. It says it is. Am I there? Okay. Hi again, Dan. Okay. I was about to go on an expletive-laden tirade that would make Bill O'Reilly blush. Okay. So, where in the heck were we? Anywho, yeah, we're definitely moving to Facebook here very soon. After the All-Star break, we're going back to Facebook, and we're getting rid of. I pay a lot of money per month for this live chat thing, and only one other person uses it, and those shows don't draw flies, and let's just be honest here, why am I spending the money, right? We're gonna go to Facebook and have a little more fun with it. By the way, YouTube, I think the shirt says it all. Things you can do when you do things from a home studio, right? Okay, so anywho, there's me. You can tweet me at the Dan Kingerski. We are on this show I was on a great roll too, talking about what makes the Penguins so successful this year. We'll also get into the trade talks and other folks in addition to Evgeny Malkin, which have greatly contributed to the Penguins. Plus, we'll get to the chat board. I want to say thanks to the folks who've come back over, like Ellen and Mutation and Brockle. I'm not saying your last name, Brockle. Mateo and anything and everybody. Hey, thanks. Do apologize for the technical difficulties. Okay, so I want to show you this. Let's get into just breaking this down. We talk about why the Penguins have been successful this season. I'm talking about, that base of fundamentals. Even in bad games and good games, the Penguins game has a certain base structure to it. It's not the fire wagon garbage that they tried to pull last year when they got bored, or it just, and the locker room was kind of fracturing and they really couldn't pull it together, and that sloppy play that ensued. Now, why I've pulled up this picture. Count the Penguins playing defense in this frame in the first period against Minnesota. Count them. The Penguins already have 3 players at the dots. They've got puck pressure there at the top. They've got the 4th player pressuring the puck. Marino is sealing off. And you've got Dominic Simone taking away the backside. 5 Penguins players racing back to the zone to play defense. That's what separates this team from the last 2 years especially, even from the 2017 Stanley Cup champion team. That team was never quite impressive in terms of how they played. They just won games like Rocky Balboa, that 2017 team did, where they could absorb whatever you could throw at them and just score one more goal than you. However you wanted to do it, they gritted and they gutted it out. Here, that's what I wanted to show you. Look, 5 players. What did that become? John Marino and Sidney Crosby steal the puck behind the Penguins' net. Same play. This is the same sequence. Quick turnover, bang. Look at the Penguins' transition game. There's now 3 Minnesota Wild players caught behind the puck, and the Penguins have 3 players ahead of the puck. What do you think happens next? Do the math, kids. That becomes this, 3-on-2, which was Jared McCann's goal. 5-man defense, create the turnover, quick transition, 3-on-2. That is just fundamental textbook hockey. This is why Mike Sullivan loves driving to the rink every day now. As a coach, it doesn't get any better than when your team actually executes fundamentals to this level. And this is why the Penguins are, in fact, I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. Battered and bruised as they are in a 7-game series, I think, even as they are constituted right now, I think they have to get Brian Dumoulin and Justin Schultz back to truly be better than their competition. But they could win right now a 7-game series against Boston, Tampa Bay, Toronto, even, dare I say, Washington, though I haven't seen Washington yet this season. I haven't seen them in person yet this season. That's going to be a huge test when the Penguins finally start playing the Capitals. The schedule makers have done this in the last few years. The Penguins get done with the Islanders early and don't see the Capitals until the end of the season. I quite frankly wouldn't mind if they played a lot more division games in the second half of the season, but we'll see. All right, let me get there to the chat board. Was the Phil Kessel trade the most important trade of the summer? Yes. The return was the worst. P.O. Joseph is still has got a chance. He's still a young guy. Mike Vellucci down in Wilkes-Barre loves P.O. Joseph. Even when I kind of tried to maybe ask a little question leading towards, I don't want to say the negative, but like what does he have to work on? I've seen he's a young guy, and Vellucci would have none of it. Vellucci's like, the kid is really good. He's doing these things. Just really kind of drew a wall. So the Penguins really like P.O. Joseph. Now, what becomes of that, we'll find out, right? The difference in the locker room has been very important. It's been unbelievable. It truly, not just the Kessel trade, right? Not just that superficially and in a vacuum, but with Evgeny Malkin buying in to Mike Sullivan, the team concept, the structure, and playing as well as Malkin has. That hasn't been a Band-Aid on the Penguins' problems. That's been the surgery to fix them. Malkin has been just extraordinary from day one. And when he has that pace and that drive and that determination in his legs, you can see it. And everybody else feeds off of it. He's got that kind of energy about him that when he's got his legs, other guys get their legs. And if not, they just go to the net and stand and wait for Malkin to, bank one in off of them. Question from the old stream, Malkin penalties, and have you seen Penn's Pittsburgh Ease video? I've not seen the Pittsburgh Ease video. Yeah, Malkin's taken a few penalties lately. He is a human being. I'm not going to dive into... Look, if it continues and gets worse, then we have a conversation about it. Otherwise, it's just a bit of a mid-season lull. A little bit of the slog does pop up. But look, here's what the Penguins have that no one else has. Take a good old look right there. You talk Tampa Bay, you talk Boston, you talk Even Toronto, as good as Toronto is down the middle with Matthews and Tavares, for one season right now, give me those two guys over Matthews and Tavares. Easy peasy. Even over Bergeron and Krejci in Boston. Over Stamkos in Tampa. I just, take those two guys. And now that they're both healthy, and there's a certain determination with them right now. They've had 2 years where they lost, and everybody kicked them after last season. And they realized they deserved it. And if you ask me about the Kessel trade, Dode, the biggest thing I think that the Kessel trade accomplished was that they ate their humble pie. There was no longer somebody who kind of rejected that humble pie. They all took a big heaping slice of it, Crosby included. So that's where I'm at with that. Let me see if I've got some other. Oh, I do have a bit more. So we've gone over the five-man defensive unit. We've gone over those the quick transition and breakouts. Look, Minnesota didn't make many mistakes on Tuesday night. They really made an effort and a point to take away Penguins' offense. First, second, and third priority before they pushed the offense. And yet the Penguins still scored 7 goals. That's why that dam that's been kind of holding back the optimism burst. And Jack Johnson told Shelley Anderson on Wednesday, we've been feeling it. This group can be special. Let me see here. What do I have? Oh, another reason the Penguins have been doing what they're doing. Of course, Malkin. This guy has been brilliant in the first half of the season. He's still not the starting goalie of the Penguins, believe it or not. I love the arguments I get with this. How can you say that? Jari's doing this, and this. And I say, I agree. He's not the starting goaltender. And it just befuddles some people who have missed the context that I've applied to the situation. If you want, I'll do it again now. I think I explained it. I hopefully explained it pretty well to you in the last show. Exactly what's coming down next with the Penguins goalie battle. But Tristan Jarry has kind of saved their bacon in this first half. When Murray did his November and December nosedive, very similar to what he did last year. Just something about November. Wake me up when November ends. Green Day reference. Tristan Jarry grabbed that net and, with both hands. Still not the starting goalie of the Penguins. Don't make me explain it, please. And top it all off. The Penguins go 18-6-4, then get this guy back in the lineup. Every team should be so lucky that goes through the injuries. Nick, who do you think the Pens trade for the Gensel replacement? Man, you guys have a one-track mind. Trade. So let's hit that a little bit. Who do they trade? Look, the Penguins have a few candidates. And quite frankly, if they choose to get a contract player they think will benefit them for several years, the Penguins' trade bait must necessarily expand to equal the scope of the player they're going to get back. And what I mean by that is you're not going to get a, let's pull a name out of thin air. I'm not saying they're going to trade for him. But let's say they Jeff Skinner in Buffalo. No, he's got a terrible contract. Don't argue with me on Jeff Skinner. I'm only using him as an example. And Buffalo really likes Jeff Skinner, but the Penguins really want him. Let's hypothetically say that. Don't start rumors, please. The Penguins' trade bait would have to expand to acquire a player like that. They would have to dip into their prospects pool. They would have to put their number one on the table. That's kind of the issue that Jim Rutherford is going to face. And given that the Penguins just won 18 of 28 games, got points in 22 of those 28 games, 18, 6, and 4, do you really think they need a Gensel replacement? Are they going to open the wallet, put their number one on the table, put a prospect like Poulin or Legaret on the table? No, I don't think they're going to, nor do I think they should. What they could use, sure, they could use kind of a middle line scoring guy who can play with Sidney Crosby. Look, we're back to this old thing again, a winger for Sid. And this is why I like the idea of the rentals. I don't know if Chris Kreider will come available. My gut says no. My gut says the Rangers are closer to their window than they are from the basement of their rebuild. They kind of retooled on the fly. I don't think they're going to let Chris Kreider just go away. And I don't think I'd give a number one pick for him, not in this deep draft coming up. The Penguins have done that far too often, and they're still rebuilding from those years. Finally, an afternoon chat. You got it, Medina. Last night, I just closed the laptop and said, I'm going to have dinner. Well, of course, I went to dinner at 10 o'clock at night. But, by the way, Pittsburgh, seriously, I left the house around 9:30 because, I was doing some other work. I was writing a few other things, for the 10-day break. When I finally did close my laptop around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I had Netflix on in the background, where the hell are all of you? I mean, seriously, the city of Pittsburgh is absolutely desolate after 8 o'clock. I walked past, over the bridges into downtown and all of the nicer places, empty, completely empty. And if you have dinner after like 9:30 at night, God help you, you go to Permani's. Like, that's the only place that's open. You get a slice of pizza or you go to Permani's. And it was kind of funny to me at Permani's, the Market Square location, not the original. It's just a bunch of dudes. And everyone's spaced one stool apart. Guy, stool, guy, stool, guy. Because no one's going to crunch up. It just, it'd be nice if, an actual urban downtown had, people. But I digress. Let's get back to hockey. So who do I think the Penguins trade for Jake Gensel? I haven't answered that question yet. I'm setting up the context for you, Nick. I think it depends on which team they end up dealing with. Obviously, different teams have different needs. I think Nick Bjugstad should be renting a place rather than buying a house. I think that I don't know if the Penguins want to give up Casey DeSmith. And I don't know the other teams are that interested in Casey DeSmith, but certainly for the right deal, you swallow hard and you apologize to the player and you say, this wasn't the way we thought it would go down, but that's the business. Enjoy your paychecks. I think Justin Schultz might be on the trade block when he comes back, certainly for the right deal. I don't think Jim Rutherford will shop him, but I think John Marino's play has been special. I don't want to see him on the top pairing. I always get that. Well, put him on the top pairing instead of Letang. No. We're not going to do that. But we could look at talking about Marino as a solid second pairing defenseman for the rest of the season. Now, if the Penguins did that, I don't know that I am entirely comfortable with Chad Ruhwedel as a permanent mainstay in the Penguins' top six. Ruhwedel's a 7. He's not a 6. So, a third pairing right side defenseman would, I think, be on the Penguins shopping list. Fortunately, there is a handful of those guys out there. Not the high-end stuff, but there's the Ron Hainsey's and there's the Trevor Daley's out there on the trade market who are upcoming free agents who probably would not cost a whole lot. You pop them in on the third pairing, and suddenly you've got a reliable veteran defenseman. So if you have to insert Juuso Riikola on that third pairing, you've got a veteran there that, and all respect to Chad Ruhwedel, who's played well. The Penguins have sheltered his minutes, 14 minutes a game, limiting his defensive zone exposure. Those sorts of things, you get a veteran like Daley or Hainsey, you don't have to do that anymore. So we'll see. I don't know. I heard Zucker and Toffoli. Yeah. Bob McKenzie dropped Toffoli in the Penguins' lap. But if you listen to what the Bob father said, he didn't actually say there has been any talks. He just did what the rest of us do and say it makes great sense. I am not on the Toffoli bandwagon. I don't see Toffoli as the guy the Penguins are going to want to acquire. 3 more years on his contract. He's a streaky scorer. I would greatly worry that Toffoli would come to Pittsburgh, experience culture shock, because the Kings do not play the way the Penguins play. That's for sure. And they haven't, look, they won Stanley Cups with Darryl Sutter as the head coach. Defense first, second, and third. Backwards, not forwards. Up, not down. Always twirling towards the future. Simpsons reference. I still go back to this guy in Ottawa, Vlad I always butcher his name. Nemesnikov. I think this guy is an interesting option out of Detroit because he's had a terrible season. I mean, he really kind of faltered. That's Andreas Athanasiou. Like that picture? I don't know where I found it. I apologize. I should give you a little. I should give the photographer a little bit of credit. In terms of Bjugstad, Ninja asks, how do you see him slotting back into the system? Third line center, no question about it. Third line center with his buddy Patrick Hornquist. Those two have a great chemistry. I even think you drop Dominic Simone down to that line to complete the reboot of last year. Last year, that Simone, Bjugstad, Hornquist line was, in terms of their metrics, above 60% in every category. Goals for, scoring chances for, high danger scoring chances, Corsi, Fenwick, they were utterly dominant. In terms of statistics, they were more dominant than Sidney Crosby's lines. That's how good they were. But the problem is, until they get a winger for Sid, Simone is kind of up there. And, oh, by the way, he scored and had a pretty good game on Tuesday night. Daniel, a little late to the party. Is the win over last place Central Wild team worth the hype just yet? Boy, now that you add cold water, yes, Daniel, and I'll tell you why. But I'll tell you why in a story rather than with specificity. I've written about this a couple times since it happened, one of my first road games for 93.7 The Fan, when I had kind of convinced them that they needed a hockey reporter, they needed to pay me to traipse around and cover the Penguins, was December 31st, 2015. Mike Sullivan was a brand new coach. The Penguins had started 0-4, and they were kind of playing some fire wagon hockey, and some things were coming together. Bear in mind, over the last season and a half, under Mike Johnston, the Penguins did not have a comeback win. It was, with all of that firepower and all of that talent on the team, they did not have a comeback win. And as of December 31st, 2015, they still didn't have a comeback win. Now, they were in Detroit on that New Year's Eve, 6 o'clock game. They were down 2-0 in the first period. It's over, right? The Penguins came back to win that game. And to this day, I remember it. The hooting and the hollering in the locker room and the hallway. Trevor Daley slapping backs, and he and Sidney Crosby just having a great time kind of going off to the trainer's room or the weight room, wherever they were headed off to. And Patrick Hornquist, with a big black eye, stood in the middle of the room and gave a Bill Pullman Independence Day type speech, both to the guys sitting there and to the assembled media. And there was a palpable electricity. And I wrote the next day, this Penguins team has the potential to be special, because I could not just feel it myself, but I could see it. For the record, I was the first one back then to tell you what was coming down the pipe. I am telling you now that win over Minnesota, because you drop Sidney Crosby back into the lineup, and all of a sudden, that adversity that they've been carrying on their shoulders, not just is that weight lifted, they've been running at full speed anyway. Now you take that weight off of their shoulders, all of this injury, adversity, and it feels like you're running downhill now. Why that win over Minnesota was important is because now they can admit it. Jack Johnson, and I think Chris Letang yesterday said it to Shelley. Yeah, there's a special thing. There's something special about this group. So, I forget, I've been filibustering a little bit. But that's why the win Tuesday night was such a unique and a different kind of game. It was a turning point. You can win games, but Tuesday night they looked sterling silver, Anywho. Okay, we got the Bukestad. DeSmith is worth more to the Pens than what they could get for him. Most likely. You'd have to have a GM who sees him as a great backup and needs a good backup. And, he becomes that ancillary piece in a deal. You're not going to deal DeSmith straight up for, a Gensel replacement. But where DeSmith has value is as a second, a third, I guess as a third or a fourth player in a deal. 2 one way, 1 the other kind of stuff. However, given the contract, look, the Penguins I don't think are in any hurry to deal DeSmith or put him on the block like that. Trading Bukestad would mean McCann as a third, fourth line center. Not sure that would be good at all. That's what I used to think, Dode. But get this. What if Teddy Bluger is your third line center? What if Zach Aston-Reese, Teddy Bluger, and Brandon Tanev become your third line? And maybe to add a bit of offense, maybe Aston-Reese goes down to the fourth line, and I don't know, Dominic Simone or someone hops on that left wing. Or maybe not. I keep waiting for Aston-Reese to bust out. It's coming, I think. But what if that line is the third line? And the Penguins simply pick up a fourth line center somewhere. or, some fourth line wingers. Just kind of, pick some guys off the scrap heap, some gritty veterans to plug right in. What if they do that? That actually it holds a bit of allure to me. I think McCann is your Gensel replacement. I think that is a legitimate possibility, that if the Penguins don't like the trade market and they feel like they're going to lose a deal or weaken themselves, be it now or in the future, they're not going to do it. I think Jared McCann is that guy, but we'll see. Look, mid-February, we might say, oh, okay, maybe McCann isn't that guy, and you reassess. A winger for Sid sounds like a Lifetime movie. Ellen, thank you. Yeah, starring Jennifer Love Hewitt. JV, ignored my question about Murray, Dan. No, I didn't, JV. Sorry, I just didn't see it. Guess that answers it. Don't get all pissy with me now just because I didn't see your question. These things roll when I'm talking to the camera here. I'm not looking at your questions. All right, so what was your question, JV? Medina, I don't know what you're talking. Oh, okay. I want to say maybe Seth Rohrbar. Someone mentioned Raquel from Anaheim. Yeah, I've heard that name recently. Look, the Penguin scouts have been on the West Coast recently. They've been in L.A. and Anaheim recently. I think they've scouted L.A. twice, and to my knowledge, Anaheim only once, but that could have changed in the last couple of days as well. Anaheim really, Raquel is younger. That's the kind of guy you keep around for a rebuild. But sure, I think he's versatile. He's one of those Charlie Coyle type players, is Raquel, in the sense that he can play wing, he can play center. I also think, heck, you might see Charlie Coyle on the market. Boston is in desperate need of a shakeup. They're going through that Stanley Cup hangover now, and our buddy Jimmy Murphy up on Boston Hockey now starting to push the panic button, as well as a lot of other people up there, including the Boston Bruins. Logan said, I've been impressed with Malkin this season. What do you think his biggest change in his game this year has been, given so much success? Lack of turnovers. I think he has pushed the puck more. Instead of trying to make those cutesy plays, he's holding the puck. He's pressuring the defenses more. And look, I don't care what defenseman you are. You see Evgeny Malkin barreling down on you, you've got two choices, fight or flight. You can back in or you can go at him. And if you go at him, there's a 50-50 shot he's going around you. So Malkin has been able to break down defenses because he's had the puck. Because teams haven't been able to just kind of trap him, wait for that turnover, and transition against him, because he's had the puck and kept it. And he's made those smart plays and those simple plays, which set him up in turn for those goals 5 and 10 feet from the net. That adds confidence. Everything just kind of builds off of making good decisions. And I hate to sound like Mike Sullivan there, but it really is a certain simplicity that he's adopted when he's been forced to, by and large, anyway. How fragile is Murray that the coach can't publicly say that he is the backup? That's an interesting spin to it, JV. Murray's not fragile at all. There are a couple reasons that Sullivan hasn't done it, I believe. I mean, Sullivan hasn't come out and talked about this, so perhaps I'm adding a bit of pop psychology or my own 2 cents onto Mike Sullivan. So take it with a little bit of grain of salt. The reason he hasn't named Matt Murray the backup or even declared an open competition, one, I don't think they want to throw that onto Tristan Jarry's shoulders. They're just getting comfortable with Tristan. They're just learning to trust him as a person and a goalie. What did Sullivan say after the Arizona win? How much he's matured this year. Take the flip side of that, right? Sullivan has indirectly chided. I've been part of the group that he's chided in the past for making those extrapolations or those inferences. If you say, compliment him on this way, that means it wasn't the other way in the past. The coach hates when we do that, but I think in this case, it's legit. Maybe Tristan Jarry, is still proving his mettle, MEDDLE, not METAL, to the Penguins. So there's one reason you don't name Tristan Jarry the starter. The second is, you don't want to lose Matt Murray. You don't want him thinking like a backup goalie. You want him to resurrect his game. You want that edge, that fire, to get it back. If you make that declaration, I don't think Murray would be fragile. I think maybe there might be some concern that he would, in some part, accept it. Now, I wrote, in full disclosure, I wrote probably 3 weeks ago now, it was time to name Tristan Jarry the starter because I want to see those situations play out. I want to go all Heath Ledger Joker, introduce some chaos into the situation. I want to see Tristan Jarry handle the pressure of being the number one guy. I want to see Matt Murray handle the pressure of being number two and having to fight over that mountain once again. I want to see those things, but this is why I'm not a coach. This is why I'm not a professional coach in the NHL or at any level, because that chaos could have negative consequences, and really there's no benefit to the Penguins other than finding out the truth sooner than later what they've got in the two goalies. All right, how's that for an answer? Rory says, in order for Jake to make an appearance in the playoffs, when would he need to start skating? Rory, don't get your hopes up on that stuff, man. That was a brutal injury. 4 months from mid-December is what? January, February, March, April. Mid-April, at the absolute earliest, he could return. So for him to make it into the first round of the playoffs, he'd have to start skating in probably late March. For him to make it back by May, early April, light skating, begin real workouts mid-April. And with a shoulder injury, you always worry. You have to, with a shoulder injury, that can become a lingering, career-threatening kind of problem, or a career-affecting problem. When if he has to avoid contact and that sort of thing. So just getting back into shape is going to take a hard 3 weeks on the ice. Starting with light and finishing with full go. Jarry was a more highly touted prospect than Murray before the Cup runs. He was. JV wants him to be the starter in the playoffs. I think if the playoffs began today, you would see a Grubauer-Holtby situation where Jarry would start but have a leash about that long. As someone else noted on Twitter, Sid is so good he can even make Simone score. By the way, what up, real DK? Hey, Jamie, how are you? I've often, if I were still Bud Moonshine on Twitter, I would tweak some nipples and be like, real DK here, just to be a jerk. But those days are gone. Hey, Dan, do you think the Pens need to go all in this season with getting a cup, with giving up picks, prospects for a trade? I see both sides, but just seems like age, time catches up eventually. I'll tell you what, Daniel. Look at the teams that have gone all in at the trade deadline in the last decade. or so. Have any of them won the Stanley Cup? Columbus went all in last year. They won a playoff series. No. I think the conventional wisdom is coming to accept that you can't drop in new players at the trade deadline, star players, and expect them to make you better as a group. You hope for it. You address a need if you have to. But you don't go out and try to just get better for the sake of getting better anymore. You don't, certainly, and I'll flip that on you, Daniel, because this year and next year are probably the last shots the Penguins have at the Stanley Cup. After that, the future is here, and that retooling and that rebuild will have to begin. The Penguins have done an extraordinary job of a bunch of players who are 24, 25, 26 years old, but they're all ancillary pieces. They're all secondary and tertiary. You know, Jared McCann, the defenseman. The Penguins do not yet have a replacement for Crosby, Malkin, Letang. As good as John Marino has been this year, he's not shoving Chris Letang out the door. So, you don't want to give up your future because you don't want that darkness. I don't think the Penguins want to go through several years of lottery picks. I don't know. Listen, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Not you, Daniel, but you, the Penguins fan base, a little bit. The last time the Penguins had to go through the darkness, Penguins fans bailed. Absolutely bailed. The Penguins PR could not get a cameraman from any of the news stations to come and cover the games because no one cared. You could walk up. Remember the student rush tickets were $20 or even $10? That helped fuel the 2008-9 fan base. But, you know, can the Penguins afford to go through a third really dark period? I think the way they're going to try to do it is more in that Detroit model in which they keep their first-round picks, maybe pick 20th, 21st, and hope you hit on a couple guys. Hope you hit on a couple guys in the second or third round. That, I think, is what's coming. Although, if Rutherford blows it up and, sends the farm away for a couple players, he's got to hit on them, too. There's nothing worse than trading the future and not winning. So it's a high-stakes gamble. And they're winning games. Look, they're beating everybody right now. So I don't think they give up that number one pick unless it's for, a stud. Do you think in the offseason, because Jari and Murray are both RFAs, do you think they will use contract negotiations between the two as leverage against each other? Interesting thought. You're thinking much further ahead than I am. Who asked me that question? Logan. I'll tell you what, Logan. I will answer that question in April. And the reason I say that is because the next 3 months, game on. The players will decide that, not the management, right? Was Bukestad hurt earlier in the year or just not playing well? Given that he had a sports hernia, those things generally don't happen in 10 minutes. Stick tap to Josh Yohe, who had the story for 2 months. And, it was finally confirmed. He had to keep. He worked hard for 2 months to break the story that Sidney Crosby had that sports hernia. Crosby was dealing with it through camp and the first part of the regular season. My guess is so did Nick Bukestad. Right? It happened. Who knows when? But one assist in 10 games for Bukestad. And he was not his usual self. I'm going to guess and take it as a guess that he was indeed hurt. Hey, Tom of Canada. Am I worried a trade of anyone would disrupt the chemistry of this team, including a potential trade of Galchenyuk? I know what you're asking. One, I don't worry about the Penguins. When I go to sleep at night, the worries I have, the Penguins are not included in those list of worries. What you are asking is, could a trade disrupt the chemistry? And, well, sure. If they get the wrong guy in, right? And let's say they go big and they get Kreider for whatever reason. Kreider says, I'm only going to Pittsburgh or nowhere else. And so the Rangers take whatever the Penguins offer. It's happened before, like Jarome Iginla more or less said to Calgary, yeah, I'm not accepting those other trades. I want Pittsburgh. Well, that turned out to be a bad decision on all accounts. But let's say they get Kreider. He's not happy here. Sure, it could disrupt things. It absolutely could. But generally speaking, unless you give up a core piece or you try to obtain a core piece, the chemistry would not be affected by trading Alex Galchenyuk or Casey DeSmith or Dominic Simone or Nick Bjugstad or, any of these guys. Using Mike Sullivan's quote in a different context, when I asked him about, this being a bit of maybe a rebirth to their season when Crosby came back, he's like, that train is moving. If the Penguins acquire veteran depth for their team, the train is moving, and that player has to hop onto a moving train. So unless they got a bad apple, I don't think there's much potential to disrupt the chemistry here. Sean asked about Jari and Murray contracts too. There are no more rumors that Murray wants $8 million. There's no possibility that Murray would get $8 million at this point. If he had the dominant season, I thought that was a potential on the high end. And he had, look, what did he have? What was he? 7-3, save percentage above .920 in October. And you're like, okay, here we go. But then the November swoon happened. Murray will not command $8 million. He won't command $7 million. If he wins the Stanley Cup and he's the guy, maybe $6 million. Maybe. The expansion draft is in 2 years. It's not this summer. It's so. Mutation thinks the Penguins fan base has grown enough to weather the next dark ages. I don't know, Mutation. I sit there every night, and the Penguins are up 5-2 Tuesday night. Was it a party? No. People left. 10 minutes to go. There the fans go. Nothing makes me angrier than seeing lazy entitlements. Yeah, you bought a ticket. You can do whatever you want. And all the those lazy blogger arguments. They can do whatever they want. They can leave whenever they want. Well, of course they can. The doors aren't locked. But that completely avoids the issue is if the fans should leave at that point. And if you care so little, why did you show up in the first place? Why did you drop $300 for a pair of hockey tickets to leave after you've watched 45 minutes of hockey? Because those people showed up late too. It was such a cool experience going to a hockey game as a kid. Like, I would wait all day. I'd be pacing and jumping up, and that was awesome to me. Going to a hockey game. Yeah, we're going to the hockey game. And these clowns treat it like it's, happy hour at the bar. You come and go as you please. Oh, okay, I'm done now. Get out of my city. Rush tickets are $20 to $25 for 2 tickets. Yeah. Let's see here. Spoiled. Say it. Spoiled fans. Yeah. just, if there is one silver lining to a coming dark ages, if it does happen, it's that every time those dark ages hit, those spoiled fans give up their tickets, they stop coming, and the true hockey fans get to emerge. That's what I'll tell you what, I used to love covering games during the Generation Next, or Generation X, whatever the hell they called it, with Rico Fata and Brian Holzinger and Dan Vogt and John Sebastian Oban in net, and who else am I missing? So, some of the characters from those teams back in the day, Alexei Morozov. But the fans who showed up were passionate and dedicated, and I bet you a lot of those fans, I bet you are with me on this PHN journey because you actually give a damn about hockey. Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, I think folks should start chanting, "Don't leave early," more often. When Mikey and Big Bob are there and the place starts emptying out in the third period. It was a 7 o'clock game, for God. Pittsburgh is just old and tired. A lot of the sports fans here have been sports fans for so long. I bet when I used to work at 93.7 The Fan, you could set your watch by it. Every night I'd get that phone call. I've been a season ticket holder since insert year 30 years ago. And like that has any bearing on it. And I think people are just like the season ticket holders now, I think, are an older, tired group. They don't love it like they used to, but they go anyway. They see their buddies, their friends. Okay, they're going to win this game. They go home. The spoiled fans are the ones who kind of sit there waiting for the Crosby goal, waiting for the Malkin goal. And those folks kind of irritate me too, because if PHN has set about any goal in the last few years, it's about bringing a certain hockey culture, education, context, analysis, and all those things to you. So that I'm kind of emptying the cachet of 20 years inside the business, kind of emptying it onto the page every day. And I'm not doing it because of some ego that I have to put this down because it's gold. It's because I want the Penguins fan base to kind of have the same experience that I've had. I got lucky. They threw me into a press conference one day when I was a radio jock. Like, Dan, go cover this press conference. And that's how I stumbled into sports. I was 23, 24, and I've had such an amazing run that I want to give everybody else what I've been able to accumulate. Because I don't think many people or anybody in Pittsburgh was really doing that. Pittsburgh hockey coverage was okay. Oh, hey, how great this player is. There's so little coverage of the game or info on hockey. Why, who, how. And I think that's kind of... Was I impressed with the play of Zucker last game? Tell you the truth, Tom, I didn't notice Zucker. I really didn't. I know he's just coming back from a fractured leg. So I don't think his expectations are very high right now. Anything Matt Cullen happening? You mean like Matt Cullen coming back? I don't think so. I appreciate the compliment, Tom. Listen to me all day. I appreciate you guys sharing it as well. Do me a favor, give me that thumbs up, give me the shares as well so we can keep these going. I don't make any money doing these live chats here on YouTube. This is just you and me having a conversation, and really that's kind of what it is. I make literally, I think, $7 on YouTube when I do these. Trust me, I don't do it for the money, but it does also raise PHN a bit. But this is so you and I can have a conversation. I'll tell you what, we've been going at this, I guess the first chat was about 15 or 20 minutes old when the software crapped out. This is 54 minutes on this one. So I'm going to give you a last call for questions, last call for alcohol. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So let's talk a little bit about. I know you want to get into the trade stuff. We'll wrap up with the trade stuff. What Toffoli is going to cost is a second-round pick. Penguins don't have one, so we look at prospects. What can the Penguins give L.A.? That's the question you have to ask, right? I know everyone wants to play armchair GM, and that's a lot of fun. I'd be lying if I said we media folk didn't do it privately, but to do it publicly, then people report what we say, and like those rip-off websites like Hockey Feed report what I say and get clicks off of just an offhanded comment, and that drives me nuts. So what we know is Toffoli probably cost a second-round pick or a prospect. In the absence of that second-round pick, what do the Penguins give up? They're not going to give up their third round, or LA won't accept a third-round pick. So then you start looking, is P.O. Joseph giving up a young, promising defenseman like that worth Toffoli? Kalen Addison, who really kind of grew into it at the World Juniors for Team Canada. I thought he got stronger as the tournament went on. He was bounced pretty early in the selection process last year. He was added pretty late this year. Lo and behold, he's part of the big Canada comeback. You're going to give him up for Toffoli? Well, of course not. And L.A. isn't going to be like, ooh, give us Agazzino or Sam Lafferty for Tyler Toffoli. So what do, right? This is the problem with making a trade in the NHL. You can overvalue your players, but LA gets the final say. Generally speaking, I think other teams have an easier path to get Toffoli. I think Nemesnikov won't be as expensive. I think the Penguins could offer something of value and get him. Third-round pick. Does it? And I'm not opposed to giving up a third-round pick. Although, he's speedy. Nemesnikov is Dominic Simone with hands. Let's just be blunt about it, right? And I think Detroit is going to want a bit more for Athanasiou. They're going to want to try to sell him based on previous production, not on his current year. The last time I looked was last week. What did he have? 14 points in 30 some odd games. He wasn't yet at that half a point per game plateau. What's my prediction for the Pens in the playoffs? In what sense, Dode? Hey, by the way, thanks for hanging in there the entire time. Who do I think best fits the Penguins? Obviously, I think they think Zucker is the best fit for them. That's right. Toffoli doesn't have 3 years. I think I said earlier Toffoli has 3 years left. No, Zucker has 3 years left. Toffoli 1 year left on his contract. But you can't say who best fits because cost is such a paramount concern. Zucker best fits easily. No questions. Hands down, bar none. But what do you get? What do you have to give up for Zucker? Don't forget, Minnesota isn't just going to throw in the towel. They can't because they're saddled with Parise and Ryan Suter for another 20 years. At least it seems that way. And so they're going to have to try to rebuild on the fly. Zucker is the only guy who's clicking with Zuccarello and Stahl. That's actually a very good line. So Minnesota doesn't have any incentive to trade Zucker unless you make it worth Bill Guerin's while. And, as we've seen in Minnesota past history, a coaching change at mid-season. I'm a little surprised Boudreau made it past the Penguins game after that lineup slip, quite frankly. I thought if there was, a chance to fire Boudreau Then again, maybe Guerin didn't want to embarrass him by firing him immediately after that kind of screw-up. That would have been definitely some egg on Boudreau's face, and he probably doesn't deserve that. Maybe they limp into the bye-week All-Star break and make the change there. Of course, no one saw Pete DeBoer going to Vegas like he did. I think DeBoer was mentioned in Minnesota. Justin Almeida as a prospect? No. Yes, he's a prospect, Medina. No, he's not necessarily considered yet an NHL prospect. He's got a way to go. Some of the folks around Wilkes-Barre have spoken well of him, but you have to kind of take a look at his training camp performance. He was not one of the last guys kept around. In fact, he was kind of sent down in the herd. I don't know that he has separated himself from the herd, from being a good AHL player yet. JV says, I loved watching Zach Kassian ragdoll Tkachuk. Yeah, I kind of did too. No, I like Brady Tkachuk. Don't get me wrong, I like my pot stirs. But, if a pot stir picks on the wrong guy, he's going to get it. You don't get, and Wayne Gretzky came out after the Kassian pummeling and said, well, if we want to expand our game to U.S. fans, we have to get rid of the fighting. And my response was the exact opposite, Wayne. If you ban fighting, think of how much power a guy like Brady Tkachuk would have. His impact on the game would grow tenfold. Do you want that? Look, Tkachuk is going to take a run at Kassian the next game to try to goad him into a penalty. Kassian's going to have to be smart. And if he drops the gloves and ragdolls him again, he's getting suspended for probably 10 games next time. But maybe someone else does it next time. And Kassian, or here's a classic story for you. I think it's public knowledge now. The Rangers were just beating on Lemieux one night in the 90s. The Rangers were just hammering on them. Adam Graves was just whacking Lemieux. Nothing is being called. And one of the Penguins' tough guys, in case this isn't public story, I'm going to leave his name out. One of the Penguins' tougher players skates over to Mark Messier and says, if your guy does that again, you're going to the hospital. And skates away. And as the legend goes, Messier turns to Adam Graves and goes, enough. We might see something like that. That's why you don't ban fighting, because then the only other outlet becomes a cheap shot in return. And that's just, that's your choices. Because the referees cannot call every penalty. And how many people argued that what Tkachuk did was legal? Kind of, sort of. It was definitely gray area hits. But, it certainly wasn't, clean, but it may not have been illegal. Kassian handled it. Don't remember where you read this, Land says, but Zucker for Galchenyuk, a young roster player like Ricola or Bluger. Penguins aren't trading Bluger for Zucker. How far will they get in the playoffs? I don't know if the Penguins were going to lose in the playoffs. How's that, Dode? I'm telling you right now, mid-January, I don't know if the Penguins will lose in the playoffs. I'd make a very good GM in the NHL. No, I'd be Mad Mike Milbury. I get impatient and that's when I start blowing things up. I'd be Milbury as a GM. Us Americans love fighting. Not sure how that isn't obvious. Yeah, you know what? The next time I see a fight at an NHL game and the fans start booing, that will be the first. friggin' Graves. Yeah, it was Adam Andy Van Slyke Graves whacking away. But let's go back to this guy. You're still with me, so what the heck, right? Athanasiou. Detroit is going nowhere, but here's a young player who's now struggling. He's at the end of another kind of a bridge contract. I think this is the second year of his 2-year, $6 million deal. And just with the Penguins' culture and that moving train right now, there's a guy I look at and say, wow, if they can pry him out of Detroit, because he is young. Steve Yzerman has no incentive to deal him unless the Penguins make it worth his while. You know, there's nothing holding Detroit back from giving him a shot next year, trying to get, more talent around him, etc. So what would Detroit want for a potential 30-goal scorer? And I pose that question to you, not to answer, but to think about. And not just go, we'll give up that first-round pick. Okay. So then you have no prospects next year. Then Poulin and I still don't know if it's Leguer or Leguere. I've heard both, actually. And so those guys with Addison and P.O. Joseph become the only prospects in the system, whereas the Penguins could add another potential blue chipper and set themselves up for the future. And don't look past Alex Galchenyuk. Not that he's going to break out, but that example, right? Galchenyuk has just boatloads of talent, and right now none of that rubber is hitting the road with the Penguins. So it's a tough call. It really is. Bottom line, I don't know that the Penguins have a lot of incentive to make that Gensel replacement trade. Jim Rutherford really can just kind of walk through Kmart looking for those blue lights. There's an old reference. I'm sorry. He can take his time. He can do what fits the Penguins. If somebody's willing to, if a Bukestad for that player makes sense, then, you think about doing it. Or heck, I don't think Dominic Simone would bring much in return, but if the Penguins can somehow get a second-round pick, I don't know. You start talking about 2 and 3 deals down the road, and I think just one would do it. And I have absolutely no idea what the Penguins are going to do, because they don't have to do anything. Just look how they're playing. Just simply look at their team. That team concept. Okay, that's it. I said 20 minutes ago, last call for questions. Kreider Athanasiou would be my top choices. Hey, NES addict. Sorry, you're coming in at the end here. There is no more Kmart. Did they all close or just most of them? I don't know. Okay, kids, I appreciate it. Give me that thumbs up. If you give me the thumbs down, tell me why in the comments. I always take a listen. Or read, listen. I don't know. That's it for me. We'll see you again next week. Have fun.